Yeah, so what we're talking about here is really an adaptation of a framework that Stephen Covey has, which is the 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. And I am not doing a deep dive into them. I'm giving this real high level kind of view of how I apply them to my work. On any given day in my company, you will hear me parrot one of these 7 habits. And again, this is sort of my take on how we can apply it to become more connected in the industry. So let me move on and start again, high level. What do we mean by connection? What were Sue and I talking about when we first started to realize this concept, and then I took it and ran with it? Connection isn't just networking. Yes, networking is a part of it, but connection is really fostering the kind of relationships with people and with content and with the kind of ideas that are exploding within the industry. It's about taking it and putting it all together, right, into one big way of feeling like you are tapped into something. So you are not just showing up, you are not just meeting and greeting, you are, kind of sizzling with all of the things, for lack of a better word. Sizzling is, sometimes I say, like I'm simmering, especially at an in-person event, because I'm talking to people, my brain is stimulated, and I'm also kind of elevating my role at work. So I've got all of the aspects of connection in full gear between relationship and my mind and my profession or my role. The reason why this pyramid is inverted is obviously we are here talking from a professional point of view, and that may be the easiest thing to think of as networking, right? Your professional connections. But when you start to have a meeting of the minds and you level up to where you have shared interests. For a lot of people, for example, that might be data quality right now. If you're really into data quality, you're connecting with other people on a topic, so you're intellectually connected. And then if you are also kind of emotionally vested in that person and that relationship, it all starts to come together to what the feeling of connection is. So that's what I'm talking about. Again, not deep diving into the Covey framework. You can pull this up on the internet pretty easily, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I have a lot of experience with this because each of my children had a 7 Habits project when they were in middle school. So I practically have them memorized. But again, on any given day, you might hear me say at work, we need to begin with the end of mind, or hey, let's think win-win, or, parrot these a lot in my work. So it was not really challenging for me to say, all right, how do we overlay this into this idea of connection? So this is where the Covey framework meets all of us, right? And I'm going to go through each one of these individually. That'll be the bulk of what we're doing next. So I'm not going to get into them here, but just know that I have forced a connection, metaphorical excursion there, forcing a connection from the framework itself into the job of kind of fostering these connections within the industry. So let's talk about this kind of being proactive first. So this is the first one, right? Being proactive is really all about showing up intentionally. So what do I mean by that? You can show up online or you can show up at an event and be all over the place. I mean, I have seen people, for example, on LinkedIn they're talking about their relationship. They're talking about a book they read. They're talking about their job. They're talking about topic of interest. They're all over the place. But I encourage everybody to kind of really think, what matters to you? And we'll talk more about this in the next habit also, but what matters to you professionally and in terms of the thought leadership you want to have or the connections you want to make, and show up with that intentionally, right? Go to events where they're talking about that. If AI is your thing, go to a virtual AI event. We're having one, for example, or go to other virtual events on that topic. Scour the internet, show up specifically and intentionally. And I don't want to overlook consistently, right? You have to kind of be consistent. Don't let people say, I wonder whatever happened to them. You don't want to become irrelevant. So you have to be intentional about not just showing up and building your visibility and becoming known for something, but don't let it stop also. It's a lot of effort. It's ongoing work. So that's kind of being proactive, taking control of this aspect of your life. The next habit, this begin with the end in mind, which again, I'm a broken record here at work in particular, but you want to be really specific. So if I say, for example, for myself, the end in mind is that I am known for being tapped. It's not really, necessarily the end all, but being tapped into the industry, right? I want to be somebody that is known for having industry knowledge, holistic industry knowledge. So I'm following those people that have that kind of reputation. I'm following the thought leaders. I'm filtering my inputs so that I might be following everybody, but they're not always showing up in my feed, right? I'm training the algorithm to make sure I see the people I need to see, the other people that are tapped into the industry. And then, I'm also sharing very deliberately. You'll notice if you were to go back into my history, what I used to share when I was a practicing qualitative researcher looks very different from what I share now. So I've kind of switched my purpose when I switched my role. Who I am as a brand is largely attached to my role. And I'm okay with that because my role suits me. So that may not be the case for you, but the idea is be purposeful about the end that you have in mind, right? What is that goal? And then move all of your interactions forward with that in mind. That's begin with the end in mind. Putting first things first and prioritizing connection. This one is where my heart is. I can't tell you enough that, again, like when it comes to events, one of my priorities is my team, for example. A lot of people think it's the networking and it's who I'm going to meet and what suppliers are there and what partners are there. For me, we get together at our events because we're a virtual company. So I really prioritize the connection with my work team. And you'll see that in play a lot at the IIEX event specifically. So I don't know what yours is, but I have quality interactions with people on my team. For instance, that's a time at an event when I really need to sit with my boss. I need that face-to-face time with him. I don't get it unless we're at an event. So I prioritize quality. I would rather have 5 good meals with my managing director than all of the other people at a conference, for example. That's an example. Then there's also this appreciation thing. And I have to tell you, this is a shout out to Paula Rozecki, who happens to be here. And this was planned, by the way, before I knew that she'd be here for sure. But this now sits on my desk. It's the note she gave me after IAX last week. And it was so kind to read it. Now she's going to stay on my mind because she sent me this really sweet card and it's going to sit on my desk. So what does that mean? That means she was leveled up. She's leveled up to that highest place on the pyramid for me. She's a professional friend. We have shared kind of intellectual interests, but also she did something to build that relationship with me very specifically to have a tangible reminder, right, that we are a priority to one another. That appreciation matters greatly. Marta Villanueva one time gave me this necklace. I wear it often, I wear it often when I'm talking to a group of researchers because it reminds me of people that care about me. And when you get to that level of care, let people know it because they will stay with you longer. That's the personal connection in all of this. So prioritize these personal connections and what matters to you in all your interactions and wherever you show up. That went on a little long. This one's pretty straightforward. Think win-win. I mean, Sue and I were just joking about something that she shared online, which was she asked a question of somebody instead of just saying congratulations. The person got a chance to answer the question, which made them shine. And it showed Sue as somebody who was really naturally curious, right? So it's that win-win where she gets to look like a curious person who starts conversations, yet the other person gets to answer and be seen as smart. Win-win. So again, thinking win-win means elevating others. If there's somebody on your team that you're genuinely happy for, don't post about yourself, post about them. Say, I'm really proud of, so-and-so for what they've accomplished. Isn't that great? A lot of people on this call track the Green Book Future List. It's when other people say, look at what this Future List honoree did. Isn't that awesome? That is what matters. You're elevating others. You're boosting, you're bragging, you're shouting them out. That's all good stuff. You're creating space for winners, which means you're building like this equity across the board, right? Everybody wins when you do that. That will build your connections tenfold. Trust me on the win-win one. Seeking first to understand. This should be easy for researchers. It really should be. Look for the patterns, right? Really, let me try to explain this. When the most recent scandal came out, the data quality, data fraud scandal came out in the industry, my coworker and I, who knew we were going to be talking about it on the exchange, we didn't start to share until we had read and curated. He's recently, I'm talking about Lenny Murphy, my co-host on the exchange. He wrote about it, not until he had read a lot of other people's posts. You don't have to be the first one to talk about something. You need to be a thinker who says, first, I'm going to listen. I'm going to understand what's going on, because then is when you shine, right? When you've taken it all in, you've looked for the patterns, you've asked the right questions. That's how you are tapped into the signal despite the noise. So that's that habit. Synergizing, I've talked about this kind of throughout. This is really about layering it all up, right? This means thinking about those 3 different things I started off with the definition of connections, like personal, intellectual, professional. How do those all come together? Connecting with people with shared interests and values. I mean, that's big. It's not just, hey, let's have fun together. Actually, it kind of like makes me cringe a little bit when people say, I went to this event and I had so much fun. That's great. But did you do something of meaning with somebody else? We were just in DC, for example, and somebody had shared with me that they toured a museum together. It was fun for sure, but also they had a common value, common shared interest. That's what really fostered a different level for their relationship, not just let's go out for drinks and have a good time. It's more than that. You want to do these things that build your relationships. You want to exchange the ideas, you want to have the conversations, and then all of that gets layered on top of your profession and your job, right? Of course you do a good job, but you're in this for a lot more than that if you're looking to build those connections. Layer them up. And then lastly, this is the sharpen the saw, which is really all about reflecting and realigning. Take a step back, do this regularly. I do this monthly. I'm like, am I on purpose here? And I don't mean like, am I doing this on purpose, although there's that meaning to it, but am I living and acting according to the purpose I set out for myself? I literally had a goal, a personal OKR 2 years ago to grow my LinkedIn following. And since I put it in writing and I said, I'm going to grow my LinkedIn following, I have gotten like over 2,000 new connections on LinkedIn because I said, this is a goal. So I reflected on that goal and I was like, that worked for me. Now everything's in a different place and it's all just, exploding organically. But I had to be very specific. And then I checked back in with it. Am I doing enough? Do I post enough? Am I reaching people who are curious enough? Or am I just preaching to the choir, the same group of people that I talk to all the time? So you have to kind of check back in with yourself. You have to make those adjustments. Am I going to the right conferences? Can I be in other places? Do I need to take a step back? I always loved the QRCA. And it was always unusual when I was able to get to one of the other ones, whether it was Quirks or IIX. And so it was wonderful for me to kind of get to those other events that were bigger than just the qualitative research event that I used to go to. Qual 360 was similar. I loved getting to kind of an event that brought in a lot of UX researchers. So I had to kind of think through where do I want to apply my budget each year and things like that to make sure I was making the adjustments as needed. And then this very last point before we move into questions is, please take care of yourself, because if you are not okay, you can't do any of the other things. Like you have to be grounded, you have to be rested, you have to allow yourself space to think, you have to take those walks in nature or, just kind of exhale and exercise, take care of yourself, and then all of these other things can work out for you.